When my mom called, her words were sharp, "You're not part of this family anymore. Stay gone." I only said, "All right." That was it. No fight, no begging. Just a switch flipping. Right after, I pulled my name off the home equity loan, froze the backup account, and shut down the property tax autopay. By 7 a.m., my phone lit up, "Dad, out of breath. Why is the county threatening foreclosure?" I let it go to voicemail. At 9 a.m., another call. This time his voice cracked. "I never thought I'd hear those words from your mother." She said it like nothing. The call didn't even last 20 seconds, but it split something inside me that I knew couldn't be patched. I didn't expect her to say it. And what stung most wasn't her, it was him. He stood behind her every time, no matter how cruel she got. Never once challenged it. Sometimes I wondered if he even had his own opinions left. I always knew I wasn't treated the same as Lana. But now it wasn't hidden, it was official. I was cut off. Only, they forgot one thing. I could cut, too. That night I opened my laptop, not emotional, just methodical, and made a list. I'd carried their bills so long it had become muscle memory. The house had their names on it, but I'd been paying to keep it afloat. First step, get my name off the loan. By the time I hung up with the bank, my liability was 0. Second, lock the emergency account I'd opened after Dad's health scare. Meant for medical bills, yet filled with Uber Eats charges. Third, cancel the county tax payments I'd been covering. They'd notice when the first warning arrived, but by then, not my problem. I went to sleep without a second thought. At 7 a.m., Dad's voice came through voicemail again, panicked. "The county's threatening foreclosure. What did you do? You can't just click." Message deleted. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and started work like it was any other Wednesday. By 9 a.m., pounding at my door. Through the peephole, I nearly laughed. Dad, angry, confused, and beside him? Rachel. My ex. We hadn't spoken in 8 months. No drama when she left, no explosions, we just didn't work. And now she was standing next to my father, with the same worried face she always wore. I opened the door but said nothing. Dad launched into excuses immediately, "Mom didn't mean it, things were getting blown up, all that nonsense." Rachel stayed quiet, like she'd been coached. I looked at her. "Why are you here?" She stuttered about still caring, "Just checking on me." Her words were neutral, but the setup was obvious. And then it clicked. He'd brought her to soften me. To tug at my weak spot. He thought if Rachel stood at my door, I'd slip right back into my old role, the dutiful daughter, the fixer, the one they could drain. I didn't argue. Didn't explain. I simply pointed toward the hallway and told them to leave. Rachel hesitated, Dad looked ready to argue, but neither did. They left. I locked the door. That was the moment I stopped being the good daughter. The first 2 days after that? Silence. No texts, no calls. It felt like the pause before a storm. I knew their cycle, ignore until it hurt, then crawl back, painting themselves as the victims. Sure enough, day 3, a text from Mom. "You need to grow up and stop acting like a child." I deleted it. An hour later. "Your behavior is tearing this family apart." Classic script. No matter what they did, if I didn't fold, I was the problem. That night, Dad called again. I ignored it until the notifications stacked, then muted the number. The next morning, a bank alert popped up, attempted access on the backup account. They weren't even asking. Just trying to pull money. They didn't know I'd already locked it down. I leaned back, let out a bitter laugh. They still believed they had control. So I went further. Logged in, drained the account into my primary, and closed it for good. That money had been mine from the start anyway. No warning. Let them discover it themselves. Later that night, Lana's name lit up my phone. For years, we'd only gotten along because I never called her out, she always played neutral. Hey, her text said. Just wanted to check on you. Everything okay with Mom and Dad? I didn't answer. A few minutes later. Talked to Dad. He said things got tense. I don't want to pry, but maybe I can help. And then it hit me, they were out of moves. So they sent Lana, the peacemaker. I called her. She picked up immediately. Said she was concerned, tried to sound gentle. I asked one question. Did they tell you to call me? Silence. Then, yeah. Dad's freaking out about the house. He said you pulled your name off the loan, that you're not helping anymore. I didn't answer. She filled the silence, talking fast about how stressed Dad was, how Mom wasn't handling it, maybe if I just. Are you asking me to fix it again? I cut in. Another pause. Then, no. I'm just saying maybe it's not worth all the drama. You know how they are. Yeah. I knew exactly how they were. I reminded her of the $1,800 she still owed me. She went quiet. I told her I wasn't dragging her into it, but I wasn't stepping back into my old role either. Not this time. Finally, she admitted, I can't afford to upset you right now. I'm staying out of it. Smartest thing she could have said. When we hung up, I sat in the dark, thinking of all the years I bent myself in half for them. Overtime shifts to cover their mortgage. Canceling trips to send money when the car broke down. Never once asking for thanks. And now? The very first time I said no, I was erased. Fine. Let them see life without their safety net. Let the warnings pile up. Let the interest snowball. I didn't burn this bridge. They did. All I did was hold the match. By the end of the week, the panic started showing. Friday night, Dad left a voicemail. His voice cracked halfway through even as he tried to sound calm. We're just asking for a little help until things stabilize. You're still part of this family, Selena, whether you like it or not. That line, whether you like it or not, made me shake my head. It had always been like that. They could insult me, exile me, cut me down, and still expect me to crawl back as if I misunderstood. Never an apology. Never ownership. Just this expectation that I'd fold. I didn't reply. By Sunday morning, I took another step. The utilities, the power and internet, were still in my name. Set up years ago when they were behind. Supposed to be temporary. It was time to shut that down too. That all happened over a year ago. I finally logged in, scrubbed their address from every account, paid off the last balances, and shut everything down clean. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Mom, why isn't the Wi-Fi working? I let it sit. Then another, the power went out for 2 hours today. What's happening? Still nothing from me. By the afternoon, the calls started coming, numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all hit voicemail, then checked them at once. One was the utility company, one from their church, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. The last message stopped me, Rachel. I almost skipped it, but curiosity won. She sounded uneasy, saying Mom had called her sobbing, insisting I was trying to ruin them. She asked if I was all right, if there was anything she could do. I deleted it without hesitation. The last thing I needed was another guilt trip on their behalf, especially from someone who'd walked away when things got hard, only to reappear at my door weeks ago like a pawn in their game. Monday morning, Dad's voice showed up on my voicemail, but this time the tone had shifted. If you're going to turn your back on us, at least give us warning. We're scrambling over here. That's the crack I'd been waiting for, the switch from arrogant to desperate. Next, I tackled the shared insurance. When Mom lost coverage from her job, I'd added her quietly to my plan, paying every premium myself. She never thanked me, not once. This time, I removed her without a word. 2 days later, the confirmation came, coverage gone at the start of the month. I didn't warn them. Let them figure it out. That evening Lana texted me a single line, "Did you take mom off your insurance?" I just wrote back, "Yeah." Her silence afterward told me she finally understood, this wasn't revenge anymore. This was boundaries. By midweek, the quiet broke, but not the way I expected. Coming home from work, I found an envelope taped to my door. Not mailed, just stuck there with old tape. My name scrawled in blue ink I recognized instantly, Mom's. Inside were 6 frantic pages, front and back. The handwriting was rushed, uneven, like she spilled it out in one sitting. It wasn't an apology. It was disappointment, guilt, manipulation. Lines about how family doesn't abandon each other, how I was throwing everything away over a grudge, how I was erasing the blood that connected us. The last line read, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I read it twice, then tossed it straight in the trash. No hesitation. They had no idea what regret even looked like. The very next day, I got a notice from the mortgage lender, not just a reminder, but a payment that had bounced. A bold red line, insufficient funds. My name was already off the loan, so it wasn't my problem. But because they never updated their contact info, the warning came to me. It made me wonder what else they'd forget to change. That afternoon, an Arizona number called. The third time, I answered. It was Annery, Dad's sister. I hadn't heard her voice in maybe 6 years. She didn't waste time. "Your parents are panicking. They say you cut them off out of nowhere." I braced myself for the usual lecture, but instead she said, "You've done more for them than anyone should. Let them figure it out." I was stunned. She admitted she'd always suspected Dad was exploiting me, bragging about how I helped like it was his achievement. Then she said the one line that stuck with me, "You can't teach people consequences if you keep cushioning their falls." That night, Rachel texted. Just 7 words, "I need to tell you something. About your dad." I didn't respond at first, but eventually curiosity cracked me. I told her to go on. She sent a long message. When Dad asked her to show up with him that day, she'd refused until he made her an offer. He promised to repay the money he owed her from that failed startup idea he dragged her into, back when she was still trying to stay civil after our breakup. But only if she convinced me to undo the financial cutoffs. She swore she didn't take the money, but she went anyway. I stared at my screen, numb. The whole visit, her fake concern, the silence, it was all just another deal. Another trick. I didn't reply. I blocked her number, deleted the thread, and felt nothing but clarity. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved what I provided. And now that I'd stopped, they were unraveling. By Friday, the collapse was obvious. 5 missed calls. 2 voicemails. One was just breathing. The other was Dad, voice empty, "Selena, the county sent a letter. 30 days. I need to talk to you." I stared at my screen, wondering if he even remembered telling me I wasn't part of the family anymore. If he understood what kind of person says that to their daughter, then comes back begging. I didn't call back. Instead, I cut the last small thread, the shared Amazon account. My card had been paying for their vitamins, cleaning supplies, even a Bluetooth speaker. I deleted the card, changed the password, logged out. Hours later, Lana texted, "Mom tried to order something. Payment failed. What's going on?" I just replied, "Ask her." That weekend, I left town. Not to hide, but to breathe. I rented a little Airbnb upstate, turned off my phone, and spent 2 days walking, reading, sleeping. The first night, sitting outside with a drink in hand, I realized it was the first time in months I hadn't thought about them. It felt like finally inhaling without weight on my chest. When I came back, my phone was full of messages. Not from them, but from neighbors, old friends, even people at their church. My parents had clearly spun their story, me as the villain, them as victims. I ignored every single one. Let them. I owed no one an explanation. Then a week of silence. Nothing. I almost thought they'd finally let go, until Lana called. Her voice was tired. They're selling the car. Thinking about a loan just to cover the property taxes. I asked why she was telling me. Her reply, I think they finally get it. I asked her one last question, did they mention me? She told me, no. Not once. Not even your name came up. That answer hit harder than I expected. Not because I wanted an apology, but because after everything, after the shouting, the guilt trips, the manipulations, it didn't end in some big dramatic showdown. It ended in silence. A silence so sharp it felt deliberate, like surgery. They cut me out as neatly as the day they told me to leave. But for the first time in their lives, they were actually taking care of themselves. Selling things. Calling the bank. Figuring out the mess on their own. That night, I sat in my living room with nothing but quiet around me. No buzzing phone. No guilt clawing at me. No second guessing if I had done the right thing. I already knew I had. They hadn't apologized. They never would. And I didn't need them to. 3 weeks passed with nothing, no calls, no messages, no letters. I kept waiting for the pattern to repeat, another guilt trip through Lana, a staged knock at my door, some new ploy to pull me back in. But it didn't happen. What I got instead was indifference. It started small. A childhood neighbor messaged me on Facebook with a casual update, saw your folks painting the porch. They've been keeping busy. I didn't even know how to process that. Painting? They never fixed things themselves. They always waited until something broke, then begged me to deal with it. But Lana confirmed it later, they'd been selling off furniture, Mom had picked up a part-time job at the florist, Dad was doing odd repair work with an old friend. When I asked if they mentioned me, Lana said no. Not a word. And somehow, that stung. But it also told me something had shifted. They weren't expecting me to save them anymore. No lies, no manipulation, no triangulation. Just survival. For once, I wasn't part of their story. One night, I drove past the old house. I didn't stop, just parked at the corner with my headlights off. The lawn was trimmed. The gutters looked new. The porch gleamed with fresh paint. A small for sale by owner sign sat in the yard, quiet but clear. They were letting go. And so was I. On the way home, I stopped at an old diner from my high school days. I sat in a booth alone, drinking coffee, staring at the table's chipped surface, realizing how long I'd been chasing something from them that was never mine: approval, respect, belonging. They'd told me I wasn't family anymore. And maybe for the first time, I believed them. But instead of pain, I felt relief. They were never my responsibility. And now, finally, they knew it too. A month went by in silence. I didn't text Lana. Didn't drive by the house. Didn't wonder what they were up to. That was new. For once, I wasn't orbiting around them. No guilt, no leash, no waiting for the next blow-up. Just living. Then one Thursday evening, an email popped up from the county clerk. I almost deleted it as spam until I saw my full name in the subject. It was a deed transfer. The house was gone. Sold directly to a faceless LLC that specialized in flipping distressed homes. No realtor, no agent. They'd taken a loss. Attached was a release form, backdated, officially removing my name from the old backup account I'd shut down months earlier. They were scrubbing me out completely. Whether it was to clean up their records or to make the split final, it didn't matter. It worked. I was free. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I searched their names. Nothing on Dad. But Mom, 2 weeks earlier, she'd filed for a new business license. A small shop, flowers and vintage goods. Vera and Vine. Vera, her grandmother's name. A name she hadn't spoken in years. That weekend, I drove to the address. I didn't go inside. Just sat in the car and watched. Through the window, I saw her laughing with a customer, shelves lined with old books, potted plants, handmade soaps. She was smiling. And somehow, it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like watching a stranger I once knew. That night, Lana texted. "Thanks for not dragging me deeper into it. I'm finally paying back what I owe you. You'll see it soon." 3 days later, $10,800 hit my account. Full repayment. No explanation. No guilt. Just closure. Everyone had taken their piece of the fallout and moved on. No apologies. No reconciliations. Just distance. And that was enough. Weeks passed. Silence stayed. No calls, no church whispers, no relatives trying to mediate. Just nothing. The kind of nothing that comes when something truly ends. And I realized, this was the life I'd been fighting for. A life where I wasn't the fixer, the safety net, the invisible accountant patching up their chaos. I wasn't tied to their mortgages or their unpaid bills. I wasn't waking up to crisis texts. I was just living. Cooking. Reading. Breathing differently. And for the first time, not bitter. Because I wasn't holding on anymore. I wasn't measuring my worth by what I gave. They had already told me what I was to them, replaceable, expendable, useful only as long as I was giving. And I finally believed them. And in that belief, I found freedom. I started reconnecting with old friends, not to unload the story, but because I didn't need to hide it anymore. When people asked, "Do you talk to your parents?" I just said, "No. We're not close." And that was enough. One afternoon, I ran into an old neighbor. She didn't mention the fallout, only said, "Your mom's shop looks cute. She's there most days." I smiled, thanked her, and walked away. No questions. No curiosity. A few days later, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, a vintage notebook, the kind I loved as a teenager. Tucked inside was a pressed white camellia. In the language of flowers, it means, "My destiny is in your hands." There was no note, no explanation. But I knew it was from her. I held it for a long while, then set it on a shelf. Beautiful. Untouched. Quiet. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a doorway reopening. It was just a gesture. And that was enough. Because I wasn't waiting for them to heal me anymore. I wasn't asking for recognition or proof that I mattered. I had already done the work. Built the boundary. Walked away. And for the first time in my life, the only person I was responsible for was me.